What is up, guys? Casey here with the Coyote Works channel. Well, I hope you guys are going to enjoy this video that I have coming up for you. But first, real quick, a couple of business items. Number one, for any of you that are interested in making a monetary contribution to my channel, there's a PayPal donate link in the description down below. All that money goes directly back into the cost of my channel and just helps me keep my channel independent and free of paid sponsorships. The second thing is I do have Coyote Works merchandise available for sale at the Lolo Overland Outfitters website. Look for the Coyote Work merch there. Now there's t-shirts, soon there will be hats, hoodies, etc. there. Outside of that, man, hope you guys enjoy this video. My feet hit the floor at about 5:30 a.m. and I headed for the coffee pot. After my first dose of caffeine, I started putting the finishing touches on my gear, and within an hour, I was on the road. I was amped up at the excitement of what this trip might bring, just like I always am. I love heading out into the backcountry, but this trip already wasn't going according to plan. Normally, I'm very comfortable heading out solo into the remote regions of the desert, but this trip was one that was much better suited to having at least one other vehicle along. Just due to the roughness of the terrain and the extreme remote nature of the country, it was a little bit risky to head out solo. But I'd already made the time for the trip, and with winter coming, I knew it would be one of my last chances to get down into that country for the year. So I made the decision to make the trip anyway. Wow, how's it going, guys? Casey here with the Coyote Works channel. Well, I am sitting in Valley Falls, just gassed up. The wind is freaking blowing down here. So I was supposed to be on a trip with Josh from Lolo Overland, but he got exposed to this nasty little virus that's going around. So he had to bag out on this trip. So I am flying solo, heading down into some of the most remote part of the state. So let's get on with this adventure. So it's going to be an interesting trip, and I'm kind of pushing the envelope of risk for me. So this would have been a great trip to make with two vehicles. It's a little risky for me to be doing solo, to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be in some really remote country. From the point where I leave the pavement on the south end of the area that I'm driving through to the point where I come out on the northern end, I'll be pushing 180, close to 200 off-road miles before the end of this trip. But I do have an ace up my sleeve. I've got the new Garmin InReach system from Lolo Overland that I'm going to be using on this trip. My service with the InReach system allows me to send text messages and send my location via satellite. So that's a little bit of a backup. So just in case anything too horrible does happen, I do have a way to get a message out, get some communication out, and effect rescue. Man, I've got my work cut out for me. This trip is going to have some challenges between the wind, the weather, being in some of the most remote country in the West. Hopefully, I won't get hit with a crazy winter storm or anything like that, and my rig will be running fine, and we'll just have an amazing trip. Just like that, guys, the sun disappeared, man. I dropped down into this inversion layer and the temperature dropped by about 10 degrees. My thermometer's reading 30 right now from about 43. So actually the temp dropped 13 degrees within about the last half a mile. So interesting how the temperature and everything can change that quickly. I was driving along in beautiful blue sky and saw this cloud bank ahead, and now I'm in the middle of it. And just like that, just as fast as I popped into it, I popped out of that fog layer, and now I'm back in the beautiful sunshine. So I'm just headed up over this little pass. I think it tops out at about 6,200 feet. I'll head up over this pass, and then I'm going to drop back down into the desert on the other side of it. As I dropped down out of the mountains and into the valley on the other side, I started to approach the little town of Adel, Oregon. Adel would be the last little town that I would come to for the next 4 days. It was also my last opportunity to top off all my fuel tanks, and I was going to need every ounce of fuel I could get to make it through the journey I had planned. All right, well, this is something you always got to be prepared for out in these little rural areas is Adel store is closed, so this was going to be my last fuel stop, and well, I'm not going to get fuel here. So this is why you always gas up at every gas station you go by out here. So I gassed up in Valley Falls, so not the end of the world that I didn't get gas here. Would have been nice, but I should still be able to make it all right. Wow, I'm not gonna lie, man, I'm a little bit disappointed about that, not having gas at Adel. So that's definitely gonna add just one more thing to my list of things to kind of have to worry about and keep track of on this trip. But you know, that's kind of goes with the territory when you get down into some of these really backwoods, backcountry desert areas like this. This country is just breathtaking out here. So this is really getting into the northern edge of the true kind of basin and range topography, where you have these huge fault block ranges separated by these basins in between. So as you know, in most of the world, most water always finds its way to the ocean. Springs originate in the mountains, they turn into streams, they turn into rivers, and rivers eventually empty into the ocean. But one of the unique things about the Great Basin in North America is that there's no outlet to the sea. So none of the water that originates in the Great Basin ever makes it to the ocean. All right, guys, my life is complete. We are off the pavement. So running a little bit behind schedule. It's about 10 minutes till 4, which means I've got about an hour and 10 minutes of light left, and I'm probably still 20 miles-ish from the area where I was thinking about camping. So I may have to just kind of keep my eyes open. What I'd like to do is get at least 10 or 15 miles back off of the pavement. So I'm probably not going to do a lot more filming. I'm just going to concentrate on covering some ground and getting to the place where I'm going to camp, because we've got the next couple of days to explore in detail out here. So priority tonight, get a decent spot to camp, maybe get a fire built. I'd love to do a little bit of cooking if I can get into camp early enough. All right, so real quick, just wanted to show you guys, here's that Garmin InReach I'm using, and I actually just sent a text message to Josh to let him know that I left the pavement, I'm in the backcountry, and then he'll also have my location attached to that text. Also wanted to show you guys what I'm using for navigation. So right now I'm using basically my Gaia GPS on my iPhone. I've also got, I started recording a track on Backcountry Navigator on my Samsung Galaxy tab. Whew, at least I'm starting to get into some hills here, a little bit of terrain. So yeah, some pretty cool little pockets of rim rocks and things around. So I just need it to get a little bit steeper so I can find me a little canyon to get tucked into up here. Wow, just gorgeous out there. Look at that valley we're about ready to drop down into. All right, this is actually a great thing, you guys. We're dropping down into this valley and the wind's coming from behind me. So once we get down into the bottom of this thing, if I can get tucked back up against the hillside that's behind me, I should have a pretty good break from the wind. Just down the road, I came to a pretty cool little cow camp, or line shack as we call them in this part of the country. Now these are scattered over mostly really remote areas, and they're places where the cowhands stay when they're out tending cattle in country that's just too remote to commute back and forth to. But they're good things to know where they're at, because they also make good places to stay in a pinch if you're out there and you get caught in bad weather, or you just need a solid place to camp. But I had my heart set on something a little bit different for the night, so I didn't spend too much time checking it out, and I was back on the trail. Alright guys, this is it. Well, the moon is high, but I've got just a tiny little bit of daylight to work with, and I think this is going to be a really cool spot. I can't see it very well. The light's just dim enough, but I feel like I'm backed up in this little box canyon. I'm sheltered from the wind, and I think I'm just going to have some awesome scenery around me. I'm going to haul ass and get my camp set up really quick. Alright, I got a fire pit built up, and somebody's camped here before, so there's a log here. Hopefully this will give me just the right amount of firewood. Alright, pro tip for you guys, since it's COVID, I have a whole bunch of hand sanitizer laying around in my rig. So I just doused a handful of sagebrush with some hand sanitizer. Another pro tip, always carry a Bic lighter in your pocket. A lot of times when I'm out here I even carry two, but yeah, quick way to get a fire going. Some of that small sagebrush branches and a little bit of hand sanitizer and I'm good to go. So another just absolutely essential piece of overlanding gear is a good little axe, and I like a small forest axe like this Grand Force Brooks. I've actually had this axe for probably going on 15 years now. Alright guys, so tonight I've got one of my favorite, one of the most delicious camp meals, but also one of the easiest to prepare at camp. Literally, all I have to do is drop this packet of foil down on the coals. So what this is I call these foil packet meals or hobo meals, and basically it's just a conglomeration of stuff wrapped up inside foil with copious amounts of butter, copious amounts of garlic. Inside these ones I've got chopped onions, chopped carrots, chopped potatoes, chopped chicken apple sausage, some garlic, some pink Himalayan sea salt, and some black pepper, I think is pretty much it. So I'm basically just gonna pull myself aside some coals here. I just want to set this down on some coals and let it do its thing. So in about 35 minutes I'll have a delicious meal. Alright, so I'm playing around with this Garmin InReach a little bit more. So I literally just activated my service on that last night at about 10 o'clock. I used the satellite uplink to send Josh at Lolo Overland a message, and he got my message and replied, so I tested it out before I left. I downloaded this EarthMate app, which is pretty cool. It allows me to use my phone to send text messages via the satellite. I'm in an area here, and probably will be most of this trip, with zero cell phone reception. So the plan I got on the Garmin InReach was it was $24.95 a month, and it gave me the SOS function. It gives me 40 text messages per month back and forth. So I'm actually pretty excited about this. This is the first time I've ever had a really reliable communication system for when I'm totally off the grid and outside of cell phone reception like this. So it's nice to be able to see my location on the map and know that I can hit a button and send those GPS coordinates to someone and get help on the way if I needed it. Alright, well, for the first time this winter, my ready light died, which is really, really rare. It usually only happens once a winter, and the only time I ever have to charge it is usually that one time in the winter, and the reason why is because the days get shorter. I'm using it longer in the evenings because I'm in camp after dark longer, and then it doesn't get light as early in the morning, so I don't have as much time to charge it before I leave camp. So slowly but surely it wears down and down and down in the winter. The good news is I have my Blackfire portable power station here. So I've just plugged it in. I've got it charging so I can use the ready light while I'm doing my dinner and everything, so I can do some filming. And then I'll just let it charge in the sun a little bit in the morning and maybe charge it while I'm on the road tomorrow. All right, guys, I am starving. So let's see how this stuff is doing. All right, well, you win some, you lose some. Looks like I charred this one a little bit, but all right, there's enough good, delectable stuff in here that I'll be able to survive the night. Cheers. Damn good. Damn good. If you guys knew actually how often this happened to me, that I completely burned my meal. And the reason it happens is because I get distracted, or not distracted, I'm also coordinating filming and everything. And so much of the time, man, it's just so hard to get the timing right when I'm filming. And then like I had batteries die, had to plug in the ready light, get my charger out, my portable power station, and all that kind of stuff happens, and I just let it go a little bit too long. I should have pulled it off about 10 minutes ago. You know, I actually hope that it does get a lot colder, because another thing with the Adel store being closed, I didn't get to top off my fuel, number one, but number two, that means I also didn't get to top off my ice. So I basically just had one small bag of ice in my cooler when I left Primeville, and that's all I have in there now. So I was hoping it would like get down to freezing at night, so it would really cool down the contents in my cooler. But man, it just doesn't feel like it's going to get that cold. Whew, it's getting cold out there, guys. The wind's actually starting to come up a little bit, and I can hear it on the other side of this little rise really blowing. So I'm in this new Evolution Series rooftop tent from Free Spirit Recreation, and this is a really awesome tent. It's got the newest generation of the tri-layer fabric, so it's a very insulated fabric, and then because it's a hard shell, it's got the metal top on it, so it's even got kind of another air gap up there to help keep it insulated. So I just turned on this little Cupid heater, and just a couple of minutes it warms it up nice in here, and then I can turn the heater off, and this tent's insulated well enough that it'll retain that heat for a good little bit while I'm changing into my pajamas. All right, guys, well, I am all snugged in here. I'm just going to read a little bit until I fall asleep. So that's all for this day. Coyote Works out. I'll see you guys in the morning for coffee. Oh, good morning, guys. Well, this is a very interesting change of events here. It is raining outside, and that I was not expecting. The weather forecast was calling for some pretty clear weather, except for then I had a little bit of a warning with that little storm I drove through in Lakeview. Wow, I thought it had been raining, but it is actually snowing out there. So this could actually make for a really interesting trip. Well, the good news is this Evolution Series rooftop tent does not seem to be leaking at all, and I've probably got a couple of inches of snow on me. Hey guys, check out this bad blaster I got. This is my Faxon Firearms FX19, and I added a few goodies to it. I've test fired it about 100 rounds, but I'm hoping I'll get a chance to shoot it a little bit on this trip. Right now, I am going to have some coffee. You guys know I love my coffee in the morning. And my first cup is always a couple of packs of instant inside a water bottle. Shaken, not stirred. I've been laying here for about an hour and a half just drinking coffee and relaxing, and that snow is just continuing to come down out there. So I think I'm going to bite the bullet, go outside, kind of check out what kind of condition my camp's in with the snow falling on it all night. And you know, this is the thing about this time of year out here in this high elevation desert country, is the weather can be super unpredictable, and I'm up probably around 5,800 feet right here. So yeah, we'll see, man. Wow, guys, that wind's starting to come up just a little bit again, but I see the sky's getting just a little bit lighter out there, so I'm hoping maybe this is going to blow over. But man, it's chilly out here when that wind picks up. So I'm going to get geared up, probably get a fire going, so I've got a place to warm myself up. But man, there's not much wood around here. Just an amazing little spot here though. Light works. All right, good to go. All right, so check this out, guys. Right up there behind me is a tree and a couple of dead trees. Now, keep in mind, this is an incredible stroke of luck because I'm out in the middle of this country where there isn't a freaking tree. This is probably the only tree for miles. I don't know, I can't see. Maybe up in these hills there's some more, but there's one right here. So we're gonna go chainsaw up some wood so we can have a nice fire. Look at this. There was an old cabin up here. So cool. Old stone wall right there. A few timbers and boards around. So one little pro tip when you're car camping is having a bag to transport your firewood in makes it a lot easier. So I just grabbed a couple of limbs off that tree, processed them up, and this will make it a lot easier for me to carry a big bundle back to camp. All right, guys, I'm gonna get a fire going this morning. I'm gonna cheat a little bit again. I'm gonna use this hand sanitizer, put it on top of this little bundle right here. It'll help me get that lit. The sagebrush makes really good fire starter, but it doesn't burn very long, so got to make sure you feed some bigger stuff onto it. All right, guys, we'll check this out. So you know what old Coyote Works always says, when life gives you lemons, sometimes you just got to make lemonade. So do you remember yesterday when I told you guys that because the Adel store was closed, I wasn't able to top off my ice? Well, this snow is a perfect opportunity for me to remedy that situation. So I'm just going to double up a couple of plastic bags here, and I'm actually going to fill it up with snow, and then I can put it on top. I can lay it on top of the stuff in my cooler, and that'll take care of my ice situation. That's perfect. Now, oh yeah, I'll be able to lay this right on top. Oh, guys, the sun is out, and man, that feels good. I don't know how long I'm gonna have it, but I'm gonna enjoy it. So I'm gonna make myself a little iced latte because that's what I love. So I've got a little bit of 2% milk. I actually prefer half and half. And then I've got a Lucky Jack, triple shot coffee drink. Oh, this is gonna be good. Go in with a little milk, and then I'll go in with the Lucky Jack. Top of the morning to you. Man, it's chilly, but cold I can deal with. It's just much nicer when it's not blowing wind or blowing snow. But having said that, the sun's about ready to go behind a cloud, so my pleasure may be short-lived. For breakfast, I'm having an unconventional breakfast. I'm having some umpqua oats and some hot dogs. And the reason why I'm having some hot dogs is because I left my breakfast sausage and my eggs at home. So I very specifically put them in a special bag with each other, so all my breakfast stuff was together, and promptly went off and left it. So I'm making do with what I've got. Not bad, that'll work. All right, well, I had some breakfast. Went on a nice little walk. Now I'm dumping this 3.5 gallon can of gas in my Jeep. I've got another 4.5 gallons on the back. Since I wasn't able to top off on fuel at that Adel store, I'm gonna have to watch my range on this. That's gonna reduce my range. The amount I would have been able to top off there was probably about 6-7 gallons, so that's gonna reduce my range by somewhere in the ballpark of 80 miles or so. All right, that wind's starting to come up, so I got to put my tent down. And one of the things I really like about this new Evolution Series rooftop tent from Free Spirit is just how easy up and down it is. The nice thing about pulling this side down is there's this handle right here. I can just pull. Now, one thing you'll notice is that as I pull it down, the tent's kind of puffing out, and that's because I closed all of the windows in it. The reason I did that is because I had a little bit of ice on the outside of the tent, and I don't want that to get to the inside of the tent. So normally it doesn't puff out like that, because I usually just open the windows at either end, and that allows the air to escape. But this isn't that big of a deal. I'm just going to come up here and I'll kind of tuck stuff in as I put it down. Oh yeah. Try to get as much of this ice as possible off of here. There we go. Bottle jack, man. You can't beat them for out here. Great little tool for leveling up the Jeep, for sleeping in the rooftop tent, number one. And number two, they're just really a handy kind of a jack to have out here. So I've gone away from using the handyman jack years ago. I think I'll do another video where I'll talk to you guys in a little bit more detail about why. But man, bottle jack, so much more versatile, easy to get into tight spaces. You can lift directly on the axle, just good stuff. All right, well, I'm breaking down camp, and I think not a minute too soon, because I've got another cloud bank coming in over there. The wind's starting to pick up, and I think I might be about ready to get hit with a little bit more snow. I don't think it'll be as big or as long of a storm as the one I had this morning, but I think there's some weather coming. So, man, guys, I got to figure this out, figure out what I'm going to do. I just don't want to get back in too remote and have it just dump snow. Like, this isn't too bad. If I got another couple of inches, it would be fine. But man, you get like 6 or 8 inches out here and I could be screwed. So another little pro tip is, out in this country, there's very little wood. So since I have decent wood supply here, I'm actually going to take some with me, and I'm going to use my trasharoo to toss some firewood in. I've got a bundle inside this firewood bag, and so I'm going to attempt to drop this whole thing inside my trasharoo with a nice little bundle of wood. Oh yeah, that's going to be perfect. All right, guys, we're all packed up and we're going to hit the trail. And the sky is getting darker, but I see some blue and clear over on the edge of it, so I don't think it's going to be too bad of a storm. So let's go check out our next cool spot. I'm really excited about this. All right, guys, we are on the trail. So I am going to turn on the Garmin InReach, so it will be breadcrumbing where I'm going. So this will be dropping a point, or this will be recording a point about every 10 minutes is what I have it set on. I'm just going to clip that guy right there, and let's get on down the trail. We've just got some miles to cover, probably about 20-25 miles or so until the next point of interest that I wanted to check out. The snow is between the sun shining and the wind blowing, the snow's going away, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to keep an eye on the clouds, and if the weather looks like it's starting to get too serious, I might have to change plans or do something different. But for now, everything looks copacetic, so I'm just going to keep forging on with the trip. It's just incredible country out here. It's amazing how wide open it is, and just these huge valleys with these steep kind of mountain ranges and rocky cliffs around them. It's just really, really incredible country, and man, there is not a soul out here for miles and miles. This really is my kind of country, just completely remote and desolate, and it's the kind of area that a lot of people overlook, and they just think it's ugly, and so they don't necessarily spend a lot of time out here, which just makes it perfect for me. And as usual, it's incredible the amount of history that's scattered out across here. After enjoying an hour or two of that morning drive in the comfort of the heated cab of the Jeep, it was time for me to get out and start pounding the dirt, looking for the first historic site that I had slated for the day. Wow, guys, I almost didn't find this spot. It's just so hidden back here in the sagebrush, but cool little homestead here. Another one of these stone homesteads. Right back behind me, right there you can see the fire pit. I gotta hunker down in here inside it because of the wind, so hopefully you guys can hear this okay, but I just did a quick stop here. I thought there might be a homestead site here, and I just happened to stumble across this. Look at this old growth sagebrush I'm in. These sagebrushes are 9-10 feet tall, man. Really old sagebrush in here. Huge stone corral behind me. This thing is massive. I can't even imagine the amount of work that went into building that thing. Yeah, so this was a pretty well-established homestead site here at one point, so I'm gonna explore around it a little bit more, but man, it is chilly out here. Yeah, the walls on this thing they're a good 7-8 feet tall in spots. Can you even imagine stacking all those rocks by hand to make this corral? So that was a pretty cool little site, a homestead, a really cool stone, at least the foundation of a homestead left, and then that corral. So pretty stoked about that, guys. Pretty amazing the history that's out across this desolate country. So now we're going to beeline for our next point of interest, and it's 1 o'clock. So I want to start kind of paying attention to the time too, just so I don't end up pushing back up against dark too much. It looks like we might have another front coming in. I can't quite tell. I've got some snow coming down up in front of me. I don't know, maybe like 10-15 miles or something like that, but it might miss me. It might be going from west to east, and I'm running north-south right now. I'm actually headed north, so it may actually pass in front of me and I may not get into it, so we'll see. I had to reroute a little bit. One of the roads that I had on my tentative route plan to take was just not passable, or actually that's not true. It probably is passable, but I didn't want to do it solo. It would be one of those roads that was risky enough that I'd want to do when I had a second vehicle with me. So that'll be one for when Josh from Little Overland comes down here with me again on the next trip. So looks like I'm maybe about a mile away or so from my next potential point of interest. Little bit of a rocky ledge to climb up here. God, I'm thinking this road could just be kind of rocky for a while. It was at that point in the trip that both the weather conditions and the trail conditions began deteriorating rapidly. Not too long after that, I found myself in a position where I was in some of the worst possible country to be trying to find a camping place in that kind of weather. And on top of that, I was in country I was completely unfamiliar with, and I had no idea what kind of condition the trails were in up ahead of me, but they seemed to be deteriorating more and more by the mile. I needed to find a passable route down off of that wide open rocky plateau and into some country where I'd have a little bit of a break from the driving weather. And at some point, daylight was going to become an issue, and I definitely didn't want to be stuck up there picking my way through those boulder-strewn roads after dark. Join me for part 2 in this series as I work my way through these challenges and come out the other side to reap the rewards that only come to those who are willing to go a little bit farther and work a little bit harder than all the rest. Not only do I get to enjoy a couple of more days in some of Oregon's most beautiful and most remote backcountry, but I also get to uncover a couple of historic sites that rank amongst the best that I've ever found. As always, I appreciate your support, look forward to your comments, your questions, and above all, look forward to seeing you in part 2 for the next adventure. Until then, my friends, Coyote Works, out.